The warmer temperatures mean that ranunculus blooms are finishing up here in the low desert. But before those blooms are gone, I'd like to share my best tips. But if we haven't met before, my name's Angela from Growing in the Garden, and I love to share garden inspiration and helpful tips so you can be successful growing your own garden. In today's video, I'll share my very best tips for growing ranunculus. Ranunculus blooms are stunning, and they come in almost every color. When I found out that we could grow them here in the low desert, I was thrilled. It's important to understand how ranunculus grows. Ranunculus grow from corms. The corms are a little bit dried up, octopus looking, but beautiful blooms come from those corms. That corm stores the nutrients for the ranunculus plant until needed. I planted several different types of corms and different sizes of corms. One thing I learned is the size of the corm does matter. Smaller corms produced smaller blooms and smaller plants. The larger corms produce larger, healthier plants with larger blooms. So when you're shopping for ranunculus corms, if you can, look for the largest, healthiest corm, and that will make a difference in the size of your bloom and plants. Ranunculus is a cool, loving flower that grows best in temperatures of about 55 degrees. Which means for us here in the low desert, that's early spring. Once temperatures warm up, those blooms are going to begin to fade. In zone 7 and warmer, there are 2 planting windows. In the fall and again in early spring. In places colder than zone 7, wait until the spring to plant those corms. Here in the low desert, the best times to plant are October to November and again in February through March. Those corms are pretty dried out. They benefit from a nice soaking in tepid water for 3 to 4 hours. You'll see those corms just plump right up, and at that point it's time to plant. If you're looking for the best spot to plant ranunculus, look for a spot with rich, healthy, well-draining soil that gets plenty of sunlight, because although ranunculus prefer cooler weather, they still like plenty of sun. Amend your planting area with plenty of compost and a balanced organic fertilizer before you plant. When you plant the corms, you're going to plant with those tentacles, with those claws facing down. Plant them 2 to 3 inches deep and about 6 inches apart. I'm a big fan of square foot gardening, and so I plant 4 corms per square foot. Cover the planting hole with soil, water well, and then leave it alone. Don't water it again until you see those sprouts appear. Overwatering can cause those corms to rot if they're not ready to sprout. Once those sprouts appear, give your plants regular water. They don't like to dry out. Make sure the soil is really well draining, and you should see those sprouts appear and grow larger and larger. As the plant grows and develops, you're going to see some buds appear, and that means the show is about to begin. If you planted your corms in the fall, those blooms are typically going to last for about 6 weeks. Spring planted corms will bloom for about 4 weeks, depending on the weather. Once temperatures heat up, those blooms will definitely slow down and stop. Here in the low desert, you can expect blooms to begin in February and continue for the next couple of months. Plant some corms in the fall and some more in the spring for a longer bloom. One thing to know about ranunculus is that the plant is poisonous. It is definitely not an edible plant. This doesn't affect the dirt, the soil, or the other plants near the ranunculus, but do not eat the blooms or the leaves or any part of the ranunculus. The sap can cause mild skin irritation as well, so wear gloves when you are pruning and working with ranunculus. Keep those spent blooms deadheaded to encourage more blooms. Ranunculus also make a beautiful cut flower. For cut flowers, cut stems just before the buds open for the longest vase life. As the blooms finish and the foliage begins to yellow and die back, cut off all remaining blooms, and if you want to save those corms to plant next year, let all of that energy from those leaves go back into those corms. Allow those leaves to wither and turn yellow, and then once everything has died back, cut the foliage off and stop watering. Allow that corm to go dormant, dig it up, store it in a cool, dry location until it's time to plant again in the fall. I've loved having ranunculus blooms in my garden to enjoy and share. Hopefully these tips have given you a few ideas of how you can add ranunculus to your garden. Thank you so much for watching.